running a business with deep respect and fun as a value actually leads to a successful business and a better life.
Welcome back to another edition of COVID-19 from Crisis to Creation here on Mentory TV. I'm Patricia Falco Beccalli, your host. Do you remember what you did during the lockup period? Did you spend hours on end on Netflix, or did you compile a photo album online? Did you spend time dinner partying on Zoom or Skype? Or perhaps, I don't know, you ate, you cooked, you ate again, you cooked again? Or perhaps you just thought, why don't we turn to literature? Open up a book, settle down and read. I can tell you, I certainly did that. And I came across a most wonderful book called Perfectly Paired, The Love Affair Behind Silver Oaks by Bonny Meyer. Now, it's not any kind of book. It is special. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to have Bonny on the show. For me, I would call it an all-in-one book. You read it, you get a memoir, you get a love story, you get a business story, you get a family in terms of happiness, but also in terms of tragedy and grief, all in one. But what really struck me about this book was it is loving, it is very intimate, and it is generous and caring, and in so many ways mentoring, and this is what I thought, it is just rightly placed here on Mentory TV. So together with myself, let's welcome Bonny Meyer to the show. Bonny, thank you so much for being with us here on Mentory TV.
It is a real pleasure to be here with you today.
Bonny, listen, before we talk about these awesome lines you wrote, let me update a little bit everybody here who you are. You are not only an author, that actually came later in life, you're really a businesswoman. You started Silver Oak Wineries with your late husband, Justin, in California, in Napa Valley, really producing very renowned wines, the Cabernet Sauvignon, at a time when it wasn't even on the map yet. You built a business, you branded it internationally, made it grow, and made it a very big success. Then in 2001, you sold the business and you became more and more a businesswoman looking into sustainable businesses and investing into it. So that is really a fraction of what you are all about. But I thought these were some key cornerstones about you I wanted to share with our viewers. Bonny, the first thing when I started reading your book was, it started for me with a bang. And the bang was, the loss of you, of the love of your life, Justin. And I just thought, oh my God, this is a tragic book. I don't know, during the lockdown, do I really want to read another tragedy? But then, of course, it developed in a different way. But tell me, why did you start with that?
I started it, we all have moments in our life that change everything. You've had those moments, Pat. We all have those moments, and it was the moment in my life. And so one moment I was with Justin. We had just had a picnic. We were in the mountains with friends, and the next moment he was lying on the ground, dying and then dead. So and then I went. Yeah, everything about my life shifted dramatically. It's like the earth, my world, shifted on its axis. And so that's why I begin with that, describing the moment of his death.
And was it also the moment when in perhaps after that deep grief you must have gone through, and we're going to talk about a little later, that kind of then also triggered that all of this, what you had with Justin, needed to come out and be put in a book?
Actually, no. The reason I wrote the book is for many years people had asked me to tell the story of our great, extraordinary love affair. Even before, way before Justin died, people wanted to know the details of how we met and how he ended up leaving the monastery. He was a monk when we first knew each other. And they wanted to know that story. And that story I didn't necessarily want to tell. It's just my personal story. And then I realized after so much had happened, and my grief process and my growth process as a result of that, that I could use that story. I could tell that my love story, which everyone wanted to hear. And it could give me in a way that it would give me the opportunity to talk about things I cared about, about creating a beautiful business, creating a beautiful love affair, and things that people long for but don't seem to be able to find.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah.
This is what I got the sense, in chapter 3, you really kind of deep dive into that love with Justin, and of course it's curious. You go like, okay, it's a monk, and there's this wonderful woman. She sweeps him off his feet, and then he leaves the monastery. But I don't think that was necessarily the case, because I think you were friends before he then made that decision. And he might have had some issues with the church, the institution itself.
He needed, yes, he had made vows, and he needed to get permission from the Pope actually to leave.
Wow.
But yeah, I think one of the keys to our extraordinary relationship, which I actually would love for it to be an ordinary relationship, in the sense that my hope is that people will find their way there by reading this book, or get some clues. It's like a treasure map. Get some clues. That is my wish for everyone, because we all are capable and we all deserve a great relationship. But one of the, in retrospect, I think one of the things that helped create that was when I was young. I actually, in my teenage years, I spent a lot of time contemplating the nature of love, and really opening to what that really meant and what it really was. And when I met Justin at just turned 18, we had an immediate friendship because of music. We were both folk singers, and we had a great time doing that. But we both had a deep willingness to be in relationship with each other without any attachment. It was so clear that he was not available, and he was dedicated to continuing to be a monk. I was dedicated to the idea that I was never going to do or say anything that would encourage him to leave. And so there was this non-attachment, which I understand better now as a deep spiritual concept that allows us to have these great relationships between each other, but also in relationship to our business and how we live our life.
Yeah. Be of it, but be not kind of dominated by it. This detachment, it gives you a sense of calm. But you were saying that you were contemplating about love at a young age. Did you find what you were contemplating? First of all, how did you define, as 17-year-old woman, 18-year-old woman, love, and how did that actually then fall into what you found with Justin?
I spent some time reading some spiritual books, and the quote that really struck me when I was like 16 was Teilhard de Chardin, and saying that love was the most powerful force in the universe. And so that's how I began to relate to love as a powerful force in and of itself, and one that actually I could tap into within myself. The other little saying that struck me was that it's a little rhyme. It's like, where there is no love, sow love, and there will grow love. In other words, we don't wait for love to come to us. It it's from me out to you, and then
Yeah.
it will ignite love in others.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one. So it comes from you. You just sort of not stand there and expect, okay, somebody's going to love me. But, when you give, you will receive.
Well, yeah, I had a friend a while back say, I'm just looking for somebody who's going to love me and really see who I am. And I said, well, how about looking for somebody to love? How about how about looking for who you love and and really looking to understand them?
Yeah, yeah. This is a very good one. Perhaps she meant like, I look for somebody to protect me, something that you also felt very strongly about, that Justin was always there to protect you. And it's somehow, that love, that initial love that developed very much into him being the reason for being. In one of your chapters, you go into that quite deeply.
Yes, I realized after his death, actually, that he had become my reason for being. And so it was that was a powerful realization and feeling within me that led to very deep grief. Like, wow, he was my reason for being. What do I have left?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of feelings after his death that I wanted to be with him. I didn't want to, wasn't contemplating suicide, but I wanted to be where he was. And so I even imagined myself kind of floating up to the higher realms, which I ended up learning how to do, but that's another story. And I realized I needed another reason for being, and it came initially through my children.
Yeah.
They had just lost their dad. I had just been diagnosed with cancer and had was just barely recovering from some major surgery, and so they were scared, and they looked at me with these really scared eyes, and that said, we just lost our dad, we don't want to lose you too. And so pulling myself up and gathering my strength and healing, both physically and emotionally, for them became my first goal.
Yes, and it was a choice. It was an active choice, because in deep grief, after, I can imagine, after loving so deeply for so long, of course, all you want to do is, as you were saying, just follow the beloved one, and not think about the rest. But that was a choice. And I think I remember reading about you where you said happiness is actually a choice. It's not something that happens to you, but it's an attitude.
Absolutely. Happiness is a way of being. And I can choose to be happy or joyful no matter what the circumstances. And I learned that a long time ago, actually, from Viktor Frankl, who who was in a concentration camp and
Yes.
wrote about our power of choice is the one thing that we have when everything else has been taken away.
Yeah.
And attitude, the power of attitude is so
incredible. It's incredible. I spoke to Phil Goldberg yesterday about spirituality or spiritual teachings in crazy times, and we talked about Frankl there too. And it reminded me very much what Frankl described. Do you remember the film Life is Beautiful with Roberto Benigni? And it was in the concentration camp,
Yes.
And that really reminded me of that film where he was, showing his son that this was all, a big setup. It was a different world. It was exciting. It was not a concentration camp. And that was so reflective of it. And it was his choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's stay a minute, if we may, with that grief. And I came across a passage of your book which made me cry, I have to say. And I thought, why it resonated with me that much, Bonnie, was simply because I thought, gee, this lady is is doing what we all may be thinking, but which almost is unorthodox to do. And I would like to share it with the audience, because it gives a real sense of the deep love you had, the attachment, the grief you must have gone through, and the pain, and maybe also the process of then letting go and refocusing your life. Let me just see whether I am able to do this. Share. So that is not the one. That it is. There you go. So first of all, that is your book. This is the gentleman we talk about, Justin. And this is the quote. It's a bit long, so bear with me, but it really is worth it. And I'm going to read it out loud. And I had to crop it a bit simply because first I needed to get it on the screenshot, but I wanted to really focus on this very intimate moment you spent. So this was basically when you were given the urn of Justin. And you take it, and then it starts. I go inside the house and take a large, oversized brandy snifter off the wine glass rack. My mind is burning with the image of Justin consumed by flame. Even my skin feels hot. I hold my breath as I slowly open the cardboard box. There he is, beach sand, dusty, gray beach sand. I exhale and pour Justin into the snifter. I take the snifter in both hands and lift it with the same reverence as wine is raised in church at Mass. A few moments later, I am at the massive redwood door to the wine cave. I place the snifter on the table close to me. My beloved and I have been reunited. We are alone together in the near dark as we were for those thousands of nights. The moment has come. I remove my clothes. Naked, I dip my hands into the snifter and feel him there. Feel what remains of his physical body, his grainy consistency somewhere between sand and dust. I am holding him again, feeling him in my hands, my senses, my soul. It is not enough. I lift bits of him out of the glass and feel his weight in my hands. Now I slowly begin to rub him onto my chest, then my arms, and onto my thighs. I mean, I get goosebumps, Bonnie, honestly. This is amazing, and I can so imagine this scene happening. I find it very, very beautiful, and it is something that not everybody has the courage to share. Why did you?
Okay, so you reading it has brought tears to my eyes too. The reason that I remember my secretary who read the manuscript a number of times said, "Are you sure you want to include this?" And my immediate answer was yes. The book, I am not by nature. By nature, I'm actually a pretty private person, and so the intimacy of this book in general and the intimacy of that, describing that scene in particular, is a gift. And it's a gift by way of inviting the reader to be to that level of intimacy with themselves and permission. You know, and an invitation and permission to, if I'm going to show the way to a deeper relationship, then I have to be that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I think this is what we all feel. I think when we are lucky enough to find the love that you have, to just say, eternalize it somehow again, and rejoice in rejoining.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Well, tears away. Next chapter. Because I said in my intro, Bonnie, that what I loved about this book, it's an all-in-one. So we have these moments where you go like, oh, and you wipe your tears off, and the next thing is you're going to be start laughing, and you feel that happiness there, okay, and you feel like the businesswoman is back, And so let's turn the page, literally. Chapter 6, 12, 14, just to mention a few, you go a little bit deeper into building Silver Oaks as a business. Something you started really from scratch with Justin, right at the beginning, right when you got married. And I wondered, did you ever imagine it would be as successful as it became and really put the Californian Cabernet Sauvignon on an international map?
No. In a word, no. Justin and I, because he had, I used to tell him I'd never would have married him if he hadn't been a monk for 15 years. It really softened him as a personality and a character. But, he had deep values and was so clear about them. And I did too. And we shared that. And our whole goal with Silver Oak was to produce beautiful wines and to live by our values of, generosity and deep respect and integrity, honesty, all of those things, and fun. One of our big important values in our work together was fun, and so our whole goal was to make beautiful wine and live a very good life doing it, that was it. And so our goal was never success, actually.
Yeah.
But the success grew out of, I believe, these things, and I also believe that there was a magical component. Wine is something that is alchemical and has an energy in and of itself. And I believe that our love for each other really infused our wine, and our dedication to just making beautiful Cabernets inspired people and attracted them to our wines. And so more and more people were wanting to just show up and buy more wine. So we just followed them,
I think it's wonderful what you say is to base the entire business of core value that you shared with Justin, and you say in vino veritas, but maybe it's in veritas vino, and you kind of like turned it around and that energy transpired and made the brand the one it is. Mm-hmm. Interesting one. Now, ups and downs. What was it like? Fun, generosity, love, great values, but business is business. Somehow you have to, do the farming. You have to get the people going. What were the highlights? But most importantly, what were the tricky situations you overcame?
One of the trickiest situations in the wine business is not, even though in California we tell everyone that all vintages are great, it's not really true. and the wine press will decide a particular vintage is not as good as maybe the next one that's coming up. And with Silver Oak, we sold our wines when they were about 5 years old. And so everyone already knew, that our next vintage doesn't in general get as high a rating as, and so there was some resistance to buying that vintage and wanting to wait till the next one. How we overcame that usually was just get people to taste them, because a general vintage maybe isn't great, but a great winemaker can bring out the best in every vintage. It's like, it's winemaking in that respect is like parenting. Our children are each unique, and our job is to bring out the best in them.
Talking about values and growing a business. Now, you sold Silver Oaks back in 2001, and your son Matt and your daughter-in-law Karen, they opened, I think, another cellar, the Meyer family Cellars. And
Yes.
I wonder, how did you teach your children, especially Matt, that he seems to be still in the business, to keep the DNA of the wine tradition, especially the family business wine tradition, yet stay with the times? Was that a hard sell? Is that difficult, or is that not an issue at all?
At our table, at our dining room table, we would always offer our kids wine for dinner, and sometimes they would have some. If there was a particular wine that we were drinking that was interesting, they'd have a little bit of that. So they grew up with wine, and they grew up with the idea that wine is food and it's part of a meal, and so it should be elegant and well balanced instead of a monster. And some of these monster wines get a lot of press. Even today, wines that I don't find pleasant to drink, but they bowl people over, and the alcohol is really high, and they're really very plummy in their flavor, but they don't pair all that well with food. So Matt has really kept to that tradition of making elegant wines. But what he didn't do, the first time, Justin used to say, the first obligation of every wine is to be red. And
In terms of the wine.
the first obligation of everyone is to be red. And then one day, Matt hands me a new bottle. He likes to announce when he's making something new. He just hands the bottle to me. It's already been done. And he handed me a bottle of rosé, and I go, "What? What do you mean? You're making rosé? This isn't red wine. What are you doing?" And then later on, there was Chardonnay, and then after that, now he makes a Sauvignon Blanc, which I actually really love. So.
Okay.
So Matt has broken with the tradition of focusing on one
Red
or two
wine.
wines,
There
and
was losing a little
he's making
asking, yeah.
he's making a wide. He and Karen are making a wide variety of wines,
But it's not.
and but they're
Sorry, go ahead.
they're loving it. No, they love the creativity of it, and so every year or two they decide, well, I think we'll make some Pinot Noir. Well, I think we'll make so.
Well, that's wonderful,
Yeah.
but because this is one of the values we were mentioning before, the fun part. Because they're experimenting and they say, "Hey, let's go for it. If it's crap, well, the next drain is just down the road. So what the heck, basically?" No, that's super interesting. And then now, Bonnie, you're focusing more and more in sustainable on sustainable investments, sustainable businesses, and you support them also financially. Tell us a little bit about what you actually do on a day-to-day basis. You're principal of the Meyer Family Enterprises. What do you do?
So first of all, after Justin's death, I became, we had sold Silver Oak and had a lot of money in the bank and needed to do something with it. And we had just begun to think about what we were going to do when he died. So the way I think about it, I became an accidental investor. It's not something I had been longing to do. Mm-hmm. I realized I was more excited by the money I was giving away philanthropically and those people than I was with the things I was invested in. So after 2 years, about 2004, I decided I wanted to invest in companies that were actually solving an environmental, economic, or social problem. Mm-hmm. And so that is what I invest in today. And today they call it regenerative investing. Yeah. I'm investing in a company that through their business they actually make the world better. They regenerate the land or society, they're making something better. And over time, my passion for that has really just grown. Yeah. And I understand now more than ever that we can't, as a world, as a larger society, cannot keep doing business as usual. because it's just been destructive.
Yeah.
And it has hurt the land, and it's hurt people.
Bonnie, before we wrap up, main learnings. I ask that all of my guests. If you look back at your awesome life, be it on the private, the family sector, be it as a businesswoman, what would you share with all of us? Are the main learnings you would really want us to take away from your life?
You know, we've talked about a number of them, that happiness and joy are a choice, and love is a state of being. The one thing I haven't mentioned is actually the power of vulnerability and the power of surrender. And those things are can really using the word power again, but can really power a good life.
Yes, empower.
Yeah. And actually, one thing we haven't. I was talking with somebody yesterday about the next normal. You know, because your show is based on really spawned by our shared COVID-19 experience. I would encourage everyone to really focus on what is my next normal, and what do I want my life and my community to look like? How do I want them to function? Because this is every loss is a great opportunity to create something new and create something that's better than it was before.
And consciously so. And consciously
yes.
so.
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. Bonnie, I'm going to leave this conversation, leave also our viewers with another screen share, another quote from your book, if I may. And it's this one. Just have to move over one more, which was basically in your afterthoughts. I wish you exquisite passion and the courage to hold it. I wish for you the experience of loving someone so much you are burned until you are no longer recognizable, emerging as a burnished spirit, bright with inextinguishable inner light. And I wish that too, to anyone. Thank you so much for wishing that to all of us, Bonnie. Really, your book has moved me deeply. I think it's so valuable. It really is one of those reads that goes, takes you through all of the waves of emotion like a good story should. Big difference is it's no fiction. It is real life, and credit where credit is due. You are a very, very lucky woman, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us here on Mentoring TV, Bonnie.
Thank you.
And thank you, my dear Mentoring TV community. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Bonny Meyer. If you can get this book, Perfectly Paired, the love story behind the Silver Oak Cellars, it is one of a kind, an all-in-one book. And I hope to see you soon again here on Mentoring TV. Bye.